Howdy everyone, and welcome back to another live stream for the Red Bull Junior Championship. This is round 6 around Tokyo. Quickly before we start, I will run through the ballast order after the previous round at Road Atlanta. This is, again, to reiterate, it's based off of championship order. So in first place, it's still myself with 90 kilos of success ballast, Doug in second with 84, Hair Razor will be in third with 78, Superboy will be on 72, Pagums will be on 66, and TDC the Damn Cat will be on 60, with the rest of the grid running with absolutely no success ballast. So let us proceed, counting the 5 red lights for the start of this race. We got Petra on pole and Sheriff Doofy alongside in second, and we are away with Pagums making a very good start from the third row of the grid. He's already challenging towards the top 3 already. He's blitzed past myself, but Petrol maintains his lead, heading into the first braking zone on the lap. This is a very tricky track on the calendar, probably one of the most tricky that we will have on the calendar, considering that it is a street circuit, not many street circuits in Gran Turismo. So this will be a real test of skill between these drivers. It's a very fast track and a very short lap as well compared to some of the others. And everyone just settle in for the most part. There's not too many overtakes happening, because this is normally a place where you would like to slipstream past someone rather than make a choice move. But we see Superboy already in the pit lane with front end damage. So something's obviously gone on at that chicane, and I believe this is just a pit stop for damage. However, I don't believe. However, it might actually be heavy damage, so he might have had to fix that. So it is a terrible start for Superboy already on the first lap, getting that damage. And Petra going slightly defensive into the braking zone at the end of the back straight there, under pressure from Sheriff Doofy, one of the relative newcomers to this season. He's not participated in every race, but he is one of the quickest guys. And throwing their way now through the dash chicane. It is a very awkward chicane in these cars with the very stiff suspension, as we see Doug sort of dropping back already from the leading group. Whether that was a mistake or not that I've missed, I do not know. It might have been through the dash chicane. It normally does make a very big concertina effect, and it does separate the cars as they have to check up on each other. You can see Tap as well having a look as well. But Simon now sweeping around the outside to get the inside for turn 2, and he's made that position stick going through there. Fantastic move. Everyone again is on the same compound tyres, so there is no strategy element other than the fact that you will have to refuel and change onto another set of medium tyres for this race, but there's no alternative compounds. Everyone is running the same compound at the moment, same amount of fuel, so this is all confidence at the moment. This is who has got the most heat into their tyres. There's Tap as well with front end damage, so he's pitted as well. However, he's actually going to make this his tyre change. Whether he can get to the end of the race on that amount of fuel is yet to be seen, and Superboy flies past him with the undercut and cutting back to the lead. Petrol once again slightly defensive on the way in, but he does have good drive into the corner to build a bit of a gap, with Sheriff Doofy right on his tail now, coming into the dash chicane. Petra goes a little bit deep, he hits the sausage curb. Doofy goes around the outside, not a place you'd expect to see an overtake, and Mike as well capitalises. He has swooped around the outside with, I think that's myself as well, having a look as well. So this is a 5-way fight for the lead. Petrol trying this way and that to get back ahead of these guys. These top 3 all running without the ballast, as previously mentioned at the start of the race, so they will not have to probably have the fuel issues that the people with the ballast have, and they are going very aggressive at the start. Petrol practically pushing Mike through that first sector. He has really got the confidence at the moment, but he's unfortunately been pressurised into that mistake. He's having a look down the inside. He can't seem to make it work. Petrol not one of the latest brakers. He does prefer a trail braking method rather than absolute front end braking performance. So he can't seem to quite get the confidence. But Mike now is the one pressuring Doofy for the lead. Mike having a quiet start, just letting the incidents play out in front of him, and it set him up perfectly for a chance of the lead here. Everyone behind him, though, does have a slipstream, so this could get very spicy into this corner. Coming up at the end of the back straight, Petrol already pulling out the slipstream to take back second place. As they all flash past the screen there, Petrol almost in the wall, Mike giving just about enough space on the outside, and myself now down the inside into the death chicane. A very awkward manoeuvre, but we all managed to file through one at a time there. But an opportunistic move by myself in that death chicane is probably one of the, it's not a place that you really want to be side by side. We start the fourth lap now, coming across the line. Petrol already back up the inside. Just shows the amount of confidence he has at the moment. Without the ballast, he can just push the car so much harder, and he's already swooped back into third place. So he is trying to make amends for his opening mistake. Flying now back down towards the hairpin. The leading group behind hasn't changed too much. It is still running Doug, Hair Razor, and Simon, with Bar sort of driving his own race at the moment. As we see up ahead, Razor having a look at Doug. Razor will be running slightly less ballast, only 6 kilogram difference between these two drivers. But Razor will have a slight straight line speed advantage compared to Doug. However, Doug is doing his best to hang on to that position. He is waiting now, probably for a mistake from the drivers ahead or a undercut on strategy, because unfortunately, with the amount of battling at the start, he has lost a lot of ground trying to defend that P6. As you see, Petrol already back on the leading group. He's already flown past Mike. Doofy and Petrol both hit the wall on the outside. Petrol going defensive to protect the second place. Doofy doing a good job there to hang on, but he's gone a bit wide in that chicane. The chicane's track limits are a bit of an unknown. However, that is a track limits penalty. It does sort of depend how much throttle input you do have in the car. And I believe Mike has served a penalty as well for track limits on that lap, as I overtaken with relative ease. So I believe that will have been track limits. It won't have been a run out of the non-braking final corner. And Doofy definitely driving on his mirrors now. He is even having to go defensive through the first two corners, which is not really a prime overtaking opportunity. You'd normally wait for opportunities later in the lap, and Petrol taking the outside line. He's already pulled ahead before the braking, so he must have had an amazing run out of the sweepers in the first sector. However, Doofy just keeping a nose in on the inside, compromising Petrol's run. However, Petrol has squared off the corner, taking the wider line, and he will have the inside for the kinks coming down the back straight, and he should take the lead there, and he has done. But he will be by no means comfortable, because everyone again will have a slipstream behind him. It does promote very close racing this track due to the nature of its straight line layout and heavy braking zones. So this five-way fight has turned into a four-way fight now. Pigham's just watching and keeping us honest. He is waiting for a mistake, and to be honest, running in that clean air that Pigham's has at the moment could be beneficial for his tyre wear and his fuel consumption, because he will not have to be pushing as hard. He can drive his own race and let the rest of the field ahead of him have a battle. So Doofy now serving that penalty, promoting myself and Mike back onto the podium, and getting right up against the wall there, coming through turn one. This is one of the most crucial sections of the track. This is such a high-speed section that you really do want to get a good run, hugging the inside wall around there. And Doofy seems to have regathered himself slightly, coming down towards the hairpin. Mike having a look down the inside, but nothing doing as of yet. Doofy trying to take the late apex of the hairpin and try and get the power down. And it's once again in this Red Bull Junior Series, it is relentless racing at the moment, you do have to say. As Doofy, I believe, is squeezing his way past Mike. One of the most, probably the scariest part of the track, this, because it is a critical part to get right, but it is very much single file with the amount of kinks in the straight. It is very difficult to run side by side. You have to have a lot of trust in the competitive car. But Doofy now regaining the third place. He swoops back down the inside, late on the brakes. So it's been a good showing from him so far, despite not competing in all the races. I believe he wasn't in the last race, if I remember correctly, at Road Atlanta. So this is a good comeback from him so far. But he's got another track limit penalty. So pushing potentially too hard through the dash chicane and running wide on the exit. So this is just allowing, all of this fighting is now allowing Petrol to run away up the road in what could potentially be his first victory in the Red Bull Series. I know he's been in leading positions beforehand, but he has had a few connection issues which has cost him multiple race victories. So this could be now him heading onto his way to the first race victory. I don't want to jinx it at the moment because I can't quite remember what happened to this race. As you see, some cars pitting. That is Doofy going for an earlier stop. He's got very heavy front end damage there. Both front wheels are damaged, however they are obviously coming off in the pit stop, and he's got front end damage. So that is, I didn't quite catch where that happened on the lap, but that is terrible luck for his race, because he was running so well in the podium positions, and he's going to come out a long way behind those who have already made their pit stops due to damage. So he's got some time to make up here. He should be absolutely fine for making it to the end now that he's topped up with fuel. This is a half an hour feature race, if those are new to watching this series. So we are now just gone past 11 minutes through this race. We've only got 90 minutes left. He should be fine making it to the end from that. Pappy's in 12th and TDC in 13th. So whether these two have also made a stop or had a couple of incidents, it is probably good to watch the track map and see if we can find out what happened to them. So Petrol's still leading from myself and Mike through this first sector. Higgins, like I said earlier, is sort of waiting for the mistake to happen in front of him so then he can capitalise later on. He is running some success ballast for this race, so he will be compromised by that as Mike now goes down the inside into the hairpin. Nice tidy move to get ahead before the back straight. And we'll see if he has chose the correct place to overtake me, as I will now have the slipstream. However, he does not have any success ballast. I believe Mike is 8th in the championship going into this race, and only the top 6 get success ballast. So it will take a lot of slipstream for him to be under pressure from myself. It will take a long time down the straight before I can even pull alongside. And I believe Mike will have this one covered. I believe even a bit of bum drafting going down that straight. So we are now working together to catch up to Petrol. From my eyes, that is about a 3 or 4 second gap that Petrol has over the field. That could have even been track limits on the exit of that chicane, but he could be alright for that. Like I said earlier, it is a bit ambiguous as to what the track limits actually is at that chicane. It does really depend on car and driver input. And Mike's setting the fast lap on that lap, so he is putting a charge in now to try and get back to the front. He has broken away from myself in 3rd, so he will have, undoubtedly, he will have brake pace now at this point. The tyres will definitely be up to temperature, and we are nearing the traditional pit stop window for those who have not got any damage. And speaking of damage, Razor now, as we cut to this battle for 5th place, he has moved ahead of Doug. However, he does have front end damage. I don't know how long he's had that for, but it doesn't seem to be slowing him down that much, because he is still fighting with cars that are relatively close to him, and he does actually come in this lap. So just under halfway left in this race, or just over halfway to go. And Razor, I believe, will be fixing that damage. Obviously his suspension damage will be fixed when he changes the tyres. But as you can see by Superboy and Tap, he has already come out a long way behind. Sheriff Doofy, obviously in the leading battle, will come out ahead. And he filters back out in 11th place. So he is the first of the leading drivers to make a stop this race for probably a genuine pit stop and not just to fix the damage. It does look like a genuine stop. Whereas I think Sheriff Doofy's pit stop was reactionary to his damage. Barr's still running around in 7th. He's having a very quiet race, however, I think he'll be happy with P7 for this race. It is a very difficult track, as I previously mentioned. And Razor's pit stop now leaves Doug and Simon with a bit of breathing room. They are not nose to tail like you would expect around this track. And as we saw in the Road Atlanta race, it does appear that Simon does have very good fuel consumption and tyre wear. He is very smooth on his driving inputs, and he does do right foot braking, which means that he will be lifting and coasting before every single corner. So his fuel consumption is very good, and around this track it is very important to save as much fuel as possible because of the high demand of straight line speed around this track. And just up ahead, Higgins, again with front end damage. There's another driver with front end damage. Makes his mandatory stop for the feature race. So everything just settling down a little bit as we get towards just over halfway in this race. We've got Petrol in the lead with Mike in 2nd, myself in 3rd, Doug now in 4th, Simon in 5th, Tap in 6th, building that gap after his early stop. Piggins filters out back in 7th with a 3-second penalty for cutting the white line on the pit entry or pit exit. Doofy in 8th, Razor in 9th, Bar in 10th, Superboy in 11th, Pappy in 12th, and TDC running around in 13th. I believe TDC will have made a stop if he is running around in the first sector, because he seems to be very far off the back of the pack. So I do believe he has made a stop, though we haven't witnessed. Same with Bar, as he was running not long ago in 7th place, so I believe he has also made a stop on that lap. As Piggins now serves the pit lane penalty, which relinquishes Doofy, who's got another track limits penalty for the death chicane. I presume it really is probably the only place you can exceed the track limits on this street circuit. And then we've got 2 cars in the pit lane, Petrol and myself coming in. Petrol does have a track limits penalty, so how much that will hurt him depends on this lap. And where does he filter out now? This is crucial for the race lead. He's come out behind Simon and Doug, but he does come out in a net race lead, if I am correct, because the closest car is actually myself now. I've managed to jump into 2nd place after Doofy and Piggins have fixed damage on their cars, and Piggins has obviously had to serve that pit lane penalty as well. So everything's just sort of filtering through at the moment. I'm not 100% sure what the final running order is once everyone's done their pit stops, because there's still some drivers who are yet to stop. And despite his early pit stop, Tap on those slightly warm tyres is making gains on Razor, who has just made a stop. So it does seem that he does have good pace at the moment. It is just a shame that he got that damage on the opening sequence of laps. So we'll keep a track on how much progress he can make throughout this race. Happy running around in P12. Haven't seen much from him this race. I unfortunately think that he has had an incident somewhere, because I don't see a reason why he would be running this far behind outside of that. It was a bit of a kerfuffle on the first lap, as it normally is around this track. As Mike now exits the pit lane, where does he come out compared to Petrol? He's actually jumped him through the pit stop. So Mike gaining, maybe possibly putting less fuel in the car. He might have been able to calculate that he could make it to the end. This is a half an hour race. It is a timed race. It's not a lap race, so it does depend on how many laps you can get through in the time frame. And maybe he's thinking he can stretch the fuel. Simon getting involved in the battle for the lead. He is yet to make a stop, and he's getting ping-balled side to side from the 2 leading cars. Petrol with a fantastic attempt round the outside. I thought he was going to sweep round the outside on the warm tyres. but he has to just settle in behind with Mike having the inside line. But Mike loses the back end massively, and that makes it easy for Petrol to glide down the inside into the final corner, as they will come now across the line to start lap 12 in this race. So this is by no means over. Despite Petrol's early advantage in the race, he has had to serve a track limits penalty and get through the traffic, whilst Mike has managed to emerge right on his tail. Doug's still circulating in the lead of the race at the moment. I believe that is him coming through turn 4 at the moment. Myself running around on my own now after the pit stop. It is a trend to see that the cars with the ballast on, the further we get into the race, the more they seem to just drop off, as the pace deficit just seems to increase between those who can carry the fuel and the tyres a little bit better. And Doug, who was in the lead of the race, now comes in for his mandatory stop. He was almost out of fuel there, so he is making the most of that first tank of fuel. He's trying to run on low fuel for this second set of tyres. He's trying to get the most out of these. And he has come out in a healthy gap here. He has actually jumped Piggins in this sequence after all the incidents that has happened between the drivers in the mid-pack. And Steve has got past Razor on that lap as well. So as I mentioned earlier, Steve does have good pace, and he has actually managed to jump Razor. So we'll see if he can overtake now his fellow countryman Piggins up ahead, because he has been closing that gap down. Whether Piggins is just settling in for a better shot in the sprint race, and he's just trying to make it through this one, because he doesn't seem as confident as what he normally does. Superboy's still running around in 10th after the early pit stop. He is making amends. I think he is saving fuel quite well, despite the fact that he did stop very early in this race. He's still on half a tank of fuel, so he is saving a lot of fuel here. It probably is faster to save fuel and lose about a second a lap than to make that extra pit stop and lose about 20 seconds doing so, trying to fuel up. Bart in 11th, Pappy in 12th, TDC in 13th. So the back of the grid just spread out here. It does indicate that there have been quite a few incidents. And Petrol starting to build that gap now over Mike, as we see Simon making his mandatory pit stop. I believe he might be the last one who needs to make a stop. So all the other leaders now filter back through. I believe Doug will have a healthy margin over Simon. These two were quite close together, but Doug has now got to think about Piggins as they head now down the back straight. Piggins will be running slightly less success ballast, so he should, in theory, have the advantage, and I think you can see from the slipstream and the gain that he's got down the back straight. He's already pulling out before the braking zone. Maybe potentially a bit too early and missed his turning to keep a tight line around there, because he has had to back off a bit. So Doug maintaining P5 for the moment. Piggins, Doug has just hit the wall on the exit there. I don't think it will compromise him too much. He hasn't got any damage, and it is a relatively short straight into the braking zone of the dash chicane. So we'll see Doug taking a wide line as well. I believe Doug might be struggling with front end grip at this stage in the race. So even though he put less fuel in the car, it doesn't seem like his car is as comfortable as what it was earlier in the race. And as I did mention, Tap behind has been slightly gaining on these two. His last lap was a 34.1 compared to Piggins' 35.2. He's almost a second quicker than these. He is over a second quicker on that last lap compared to these two. So he will be making Piggins look in his mirrors as this race progresses. We've only got 6.5 minutes left in the race, so the time is running out for these drivers. I do believe that everyone now has made their stop, so we will see who has the outright pace now, because everyone should be in the positions that they are. But Petrol seemingly on for his first victory, I believe. I can't remember if he got one at the Glen when we went there, but he might have disconnected. But this has been a very commanding drive from Petrol after seemingly losing his head at the start, he has managed to regain all that focus and has pulled the gap over the rest of the field. He should easily make it to the end of the race at this point. And Mike will probably be happy with his performance, and Petrol just confirming in the chat that he did DC at the Glen, so I believe this will be his first victory, pending of course he makes it to the end, which hopefully he does. It would be nice to see him get a victory. And again, another quiet but decent result for myself. I think I was very happy with this at the time, to get another podium despite having the ballast. Doofy, a very good comeback at the moment. He has had a few incidents. You can see the scratches on the front of his car, but he has been very quick, despite, I believe as well, not doing much practice leading up to the race. I believe he did show up for maybe one session and then showed up for the race day, and so he has displayed that he has a very natural ability to just adapt to this track and this car. He's on for a fastest lap of the race as well, as he is bearing down slightly now for the final podium position. Hitting the wall slightly, but I don't believe it will have cost him too much coming around there. And Piggums now has slingshot past Doug, probably down the back straight using the slipstream. And now this battle has now invited Tap onto the back of Doug. Doug will probably be desperate to try and get back ahead, but Piggums has spun it in the death chicane. I heard the tyres screeching, and I didn't want to change the camera in case it bugged out the replay. But Piggums has made a mistake coming through the death chicane. I don't know if Doug, has he hit Piggums there? No, but he has got a track limits penalty for taking evasive action, which is a very harsh penalty indeed. And all of a sudden, the doors have just completely blown themselves open for Tap, who gains 2 positions in 3 corners. So it all seemed lost for Tap in the opening stages of the race, and now he's back into a top 5 position, which will be a very decent result. I don't think he will be complaining about that at all, because that is very good drive, despite having to make this fuel last from the start of the race essentially. As you see now, a bit of contact between myself and Doofy on the back straight. I believe I wanted to pick the left-hand side, and Doofy was also going for the left-hand side down the straight. Doofy going a bit wide through the kink on the straight, but he gets the inside line coming up into the corner at the end of the back straight, and he's already pulled ahead before the braking. So Doofy now promotes himself back into third. He goes a bit wide again, scratching the wall on the outside, but there's not really much I can do about that, as Doofy now takes the podium away, and I run very wide in the background there. That will most definitely be a track limits penalty, and there it is popping up on the screen. So Tap already building that advantage over Doug. Tap I believe will also be running without success ballast, same with Mike and Petrol, which will probably explain his very good pace in this race. And Doug as well, having to serve that track limits penalty that we spoke of earlier. And despite the spin, Piggins is not too far behind. He probably did a full 360 spin and has managed to keep in touch here. He could still get a top 6 finish, which would be nothing to sniff about with the success ballast. Razor is running around in 8th. He seems to have had a bit of just taken a step back in this middle part of the race, nearing the end now. We've only got 2 minutes and 2 seconds left on the clock. So we potentially have 2 laps left. It depends how, potentially 2 or 3 laps. It depends where Petrol is on the circuit. We've got Simon in 9th, Superboy still running around in 10th, Bar in 11th, Happy in 12th, TDC still in 13th. So Petrol now heading towards the death chicane. I do believe we will have maybe just 1 more lap, I believe. I think this is now Petrol heading on to the final lap of the race. With the expected lap times, you can see he has taken that fastest lap away from Mike. So now Petrol will have just 1 more lap to complete, heading down towards turn 1. Mike will be in 2nd with maybe some fuel concerns. He did obviously jump Petrol through the pit stop, so whether he didn't take enough fuel on board and is trying to conserve, is yet to be seen. We'll see where he is at the end of the lap. Sheriff now running in third after making the overtake past himself. He has got some front end damage, but I believe he has built enough of a gap to play it safe now and just bring this one home. However, it seems he has had a very slow first sector comparatively to myself. So maybe he might be under a bit of pressure. That will compromise him slightly down the back straight, as it will cause some drag on the aero side and will also cause him to turn down the straight to keep his wheels straight. So it could compromise him slightly. Tap will be very happy with his 5th place. Very already building that a big gap over Doug. So as we cut back to Petrol now, coming into the final braking zones of the lap, and he seems to have been the class of the field so far this weekend in the Red Bull Juniors at Tokyo Expressway. As he rounds the final time through the dash chicane, it is the final lap confirmed now on the screen. And as he comes across the line to take his first victory in the Red Bulls, Petrol wins the feature race at Tokyo with a fastest lap as well, just to rub it in for everyone else. Mike takes a 2nd place with just about enough fuel. And I have been promoted back into 3rd place. So whether Doofy made another mistake or got more damage, he might have made a mistake through the dash chicane. So it is myself in 3rd, Sheriff Doofy in 4th. Tap will come across the line in 5th place. Doug rounding out the people who will have success ballast for the next race in 6th. Piggums comes across the line in 7th with absolutely no fuel on board. Razor finishes 8th. Simon in P9. Superboy is coming round the final corner now to finish in 10th place. TDC has already finished the race. I believe he was a lap down. I didn't see where he was lapped by Petrol. Bar limping across the line here. He's got front end damage on both sides of the car. Still finished in P11. It is worth finishing these races, even if you're outside the top 10, because we use the British Touring Car point system. So in theory, every position in Gran Turismo is worth points. And Pappy, the final car to cross the line to take P12. So I will get the next broadcast up for the sprint race. Give me 1 second. So as we head for the sprint race now, again, if you are new around here, we do have reverse grid rules for the sprint race. So this promotes TDC and Happy Pappy to the front row of the grid. As the 5 red lights go out and we are underway for the sprint race, TDC making a good start over Pappy. He should be able to hold the lead there, with Superboy seeming to be making it 3 wide nearly, coming into turn 1, nothing doing as of yet. But Pappy now swoops in on the inside to take the lead, coming through the first sector of the lap. So Pappy sensing his opportunity very early on in the race to get on with it, and he has made the most of his reverse grid position. However, TDC now has the inside line for the hairpin. They bang wheels as they come down towards the braking zone. Superboy also looking down the inside. He might have made a bit of contact there with TDC, but he has made the position, and we've got a crash at the hairpin. It is Sheriff Doofy. He seems to have gone straight on at the chicane, and that is heavy damage to the car. That is almost race over, it seems, as Petrol seemingly waiting up. So maybe there has been a collision between these two, which is a big shame, because already on the first lap of the race, their races are essentially through, as there are no mandatory pit stops in the sprint race. It is just pedal to the metal to try and get the best position that you can, and we see Superboy has made that position stick over TDC, so he is now taking the lead. coming through the dash chicane for the first time this race. TDC slightly missing the apex there, which will compromise him slightly, but Simon has now also moved ahead of Pappy. So Pappy seemingly a bit flustered after the shenanigans at the hairpin. He is trying to get back onto the podium at least, but he's got Razor as well, who has made a very good start after starting mid-pack. He is now up into 5th place. Trying to take a look down the inside. TDC has hit the wall up front, and this now gives Simon an opportunity to have a look down the inside. And this is hold your breath stuff, because it's always a very scary first sector of the lap. As you see, there's some very jerky manoeuvres coming from the drivers as they just try and find a way around each other, even potentially just trying to look and see where the track is, because they are running so close to each other. Doug, I believe, has had a bit of contact with someone coming through the hairpin. I believe that is Tack, so he lets him back through. So myself and Doug are close championship rivals, first and second as it stands at this point in the season. So we will both be trying to get one up over each other, and Mike is the last one in this group, with Sheriff Doofy now pitting to get his car repaired after the crash on lap 1, which leaves Petrol to push on by himself. And TDC now has major pressure from behind. He has got 2 cars basically side by side trying to get past him as quickly as possible. There is a bit of bumping and barging through the dash chicane. I believe that was that Barham Higgins that had made a bit of contact through there. And that has broken up the pack quite a bit there. Pickens has got the position over Barr. And neither one of those two wanting to give up the position to the dash chicane. And Razor as well taking a look on the inside. Barr seemingly not seeing it coming. They do make contact as well. But Razor has got up into the 5th place. So this has been a very good start from Piggins and Razor, who are... Actually, no, Piggins has got rid of the weight after that first race. He did finish in P7. But Razor as well will also be running without weight. So these two have now, despite running in the higher positions in the championship, they have both lost their success ballast for this race since they finished outside the top 6. So now they are the ones who are probably the 2 fastest drivers in the group without the weight on the car. And as we cut back to Doug, who has made a very big impression on this lap. Last time we cut to him, he was running in about 10th place, so he has made up 4 positions since we last checked him on this battle. He has got big pressure from Happy, who unfortunately has just not had the start that he wanted. He started in 2nd place for this race, and he's dropped back down to 7th, but he's at least still in the fight for this. And if my memory serves me correctly, this was a race where, even though it was a sprint race and you didn't have to make a pit stop, there was only just about enough fuel to get to the end. So we'll see again who is the best at saving their fuel in a sprint race format, because this is very difficult to choose your moment for when you save your fuel whilst it is still this close. Pappy pulling alongside Doug now to take the outside line for turn 1. I don't believe he will pull this off. Doug seems to be very good at his defensive driving. And as TDC now has dropped back into 5th place, that leaves Razor and Simon to battle it out. Superboy seeming to make the most of it and just get up the road, not wanting to look back whatsoever this race. And Razor now up the inside of Simon into the hairpin. Same with Doug. He has made a very bold move on TDC at the hairpin, and that presents an opportunity for myself. However, Pappy is now slipstreaming back past me. So Pappy has now capitalised on that position. He is keeping himself in the fight, trying to use the slipstream to his advantage, whilst the guys who were out of position with the reverse grid seemingly push on through. So you see TDC now already trying to get payback for that overtake that Doug pulled at the hairpin. Simon has been overtaken by Razor, so now Razor is back into the podium positions. So this could be another Red Bull Ring situation where Razor shows some very incredible pace in the sprint race, now that he's got a lot of his closer rivals out of the way. but we do have a very close train. Doug does have a track limits penalty for the chicane. I didn't quite see that, but I am going to put a big assumption on the fact that it wasn't the chicane. And he does get tapped up the rear from TDC. That throws him wide. TDC does wait for him to regroup and keep the position, but that just brings the remaining cars behind closer up the back, as Pappy has been repassed by myself, and now I am looking for a position on TDC. The next overtaking opportunity will be good for both TDC and myself, and I pull out the slipstream to go down the inside. Doug goes wide as well, so it could be 2 in 1 at the hairpin as I move up into 5th place. Doug seemingly getting that wrong all by himself, it seems. Probably still struggling with the front end issues he had in the first race. So I am struggling to keep up with how much is happening right now. Now Doug has got pressure from Pappy again in this race. TDC does have the slipstream. He should be quite quick in a straight line compared to me. TDC will not have any success ballast. And this battle, despite how intense it is, we are clawing our way to the back of Simon again. So we are still progressing through the field. As Simon goes a bit deep through the chicane, I take a clobbering of curb, which would be very uncomfortable in real life. And there's just about enough room there for us to both of us squeeze through in the flat-out final corner. As we cross the line as a virtual dead heat, TDC giving me a bump draft to push me on ahead. So that way that TDC can now make a move on the outside. He's gone a bit deep into turn 1, and that just gives the position back to Simon. So it's P4 for myself, Simon in 5th, TDC in 6th. However, that might not be for long, as Pappy now looking for a move on the outside. Doug has seemingly dropped back and is now under pressure from Mike, I think that was. Mike in the very distinguishable purple Joker car. And as Superboy makes a pit stop, so he's had a crash somewhere, and he's pitting for damage, I believe that is. And yeah, it is front end damage, so he has crashed from the lead of the race, which is a big shame, as well as we've got petrol in the pit lane. I believe that could be a permanent retirement from the race, same with Sheriff Doofy. So this promotes Piggins now into the lead of the race, one of the favourites for the championship, and I'm sure you'll be delighted to see that he has now been left in the lead with a, I wouldn't say healthy margin, but it's not like he has to constantly drive in the mirrors at the moment. Razor now promoted up into 2nd, and myself now back into 3rd place where I finished the last race. However, I doubt it will stay like this for long, as there is contact between Simon and Pappy in the chicane. Pappy goes spinning. Thankfully, he's off the track and out of the way of the rest of the field, otherwise that could have been a very nasty crash. So Simon is now compromised. That allows me to escape up the road, and Doug will be looking for a way past as soon as possible, but now he's got Tap to think about. Out of nowhere, Steve has emerged to get involved in the fight for a top 5 finish again. So Steve does love a comeback around this track. He has seemingly managed to pass Mike somewhere. I believe he was battling with Bar the last time that we caught a glimpse of him in the background. And for this is a 4th place position now, actually, now that Troy has made his pit stop. So Doug on the defensive, coming into the hairpin. Simon leaving the door open for Tap to stick a wheel up the inside. They come out side by side, but Simon just gets the better traction on the exit. So Steve will have to wait for the slipstream. However, it depends on who is willing to work together here, because a bump draft down the straight is extremely important. Tap and Mike will both be running the ballast. Simon is, I believe, Simon and Bar will be the jokers in this group, as they will be the ones running without ballast. And you can see how much speed Simon has now down the back straight. Doug holds him tight, but he has to widen the entry of the corner up, and Doug uses that wider line just to carry more speed, and it has taken the downforce off the front end of Simon's car. So Simon now the one on the defence coming into the death chicane. He has seemingly held off Steve for the moment through there. However, Mike and Bar are now engaging in their own little battle, which will drop them off the back of the group. Superboy has got a track limit penalty to serve, but he is not too far behind it. Superboy, with those fresh tyres and the lower fuel, could still make a few positions up here, as Tap now finally gets past Simon in his pursuit of Doug. This is for best of the rest, those of who won't finish on the podium this race. This is for that crucial P4. And Steve potentially trying to break the toe there as they head into the hairpin, not wanting to give the guys behind any opportunity into the hairpin. Steve down the inside, and there seems to be a collision between Simon and Mike. I don't really understand what was happening there. It seems like Doug went wide and in the corner, and that compromised everyone who had to check up to try and fit through the inside line on the corner. And I think Steve might have hit the inside wall and checked up the drivers behind him due to the lack of momentum that he had. So this now promotes Barr into 6th, and crucially it puts our former race leader Superboy back up into 7th now. So Superboy could still get some hefty points out of this race. As long as he keeps it clean, he could still get a P4 if he gets the hammer down. As we now check in again with our race leaders, it is surprisingly quiet up front. All the action seems to be in the mid-pack. Pigham's still running around in first place. He does have the fastest lap as well to go with that, with Hair Razor in 2nd, a very consistent race from him. Myself in 3rd, and Tap now going past Doug. I believe Doug did have a track limits penalty from what I remember. So Steve now into 4th from a very lowly position and a bit of a cautious start. He has already managed to make his way back into 4th, and we've still got 7 minutes left of racing, near enough. So this has been a very impressive drive so far. And as you see, this pace that Troy has at the moment, compared to those who have not made a pit stop, Barr does have some slight front end damage. And Superboy trying to hang it on around the outside. Doug also making a pit stop as well for damage. So that is a big shame for his championship hopes. Superboy and Barr still side by side down the straight. Neither one of them can seemingly get a good advantage, but Troy just has the inside line for one of the kinks on the straight, and he has pulled ahead into 5th place now. So he is flying at the moment. He has made up about 5 positions in the past 3 laps, which is a very unlikely thing to see, especially at this point in the race when the field is getting a bit spread out, you have to say, judging by the track map. So the question is, can he catch Tap as well? Despite Tap having a very impressive race so far, he might still be under pressure here for that P4. So we'll wait to see how that one plays out. But at the moment, it does seem that everything is just getting slightly spaced out. TDC and Simon now, the 2 battle-scarred drivers from the start of this race, starting so close to the front, have now found each other on track and are now actually fighting for position. Simon does have front and rear end damage on his car, which is, I don't know where that's happened, whether that was just naturally through the race or if that was a recent crash. But TDC not finding it difficult without the damage. He just flies past Simon going into turn 1. And Mike seemingly not adjusting to the ballast as well as he'd like, but it is still a top 10 finish. It is a top 8, so he will be happy with the points that he's receiving. It is just a shame that he has been broken off the train slightly, and I think he will have. Well, actually, now recalling back to earlier in the race, I believe that damage that Simon has did come from the crash that Mike was involved in at the hairpin. So maybe that is where he got the damage from, and that's why he is seemingly dropped off rather quickly, unfortunately. So Pigham's now starting lap 11 in this race. We've only got just over 4 minutes left of racing, so we are nearing the end of these sprint races. These races do tend to fly by, as I've got a track limits penalty coming out of the death chicane, which is not ideal, not really with any pressure from behind, so it is just a bit of a silly mistake. And I have hit the wall actually, and I've sustained some front end damage. So whether that gives an opportunity to Superboy now, I was about to say Tap, but it is Superboy who has managed to already blitz past Tap. So it is Superboy on for another fastest lap as well. So does that damage for myself actually give Superboy an opportunity to get back on the podium? Tap now flashing the lights, trying to distract Superboy coming into the braking zone of the hairpin. Bar with front end damage as well. He's running around in 6th. However, I believe he will be okay, as he's not under any pressure from the cars around him. Doug, after making that pit stop, is in 7th, which he will be ruining what happened in his incident. But he is still picking up the points, which is everything in this championship battle. TDC now moving up into 8th place. He has got past Mike. So TDC now coming on strong in the final moments of the race, which I believe he will be happy with the top 8 considering how his feature race went. I believe he will be satisfied with the top 8 to get some more points on the board. Happy and Simon now racing each other. I think Simon is really struggling with that damage. I don't know how much damage he will have. I didn't quite see how big the impact was in that crash, but he is seemingly struggling. He isn't running last in this race in terms of cars that haven't retired, but it is still worth him carrying on just to get those points. But unfortunately, I do believe his car just doesn't have enough pace for him to challenge anyone else in this race. As we cut now back to Razor, this gap seems to be at a bit of a stalemate at the moment. Neither Piggums nor Razor can seemingly close or pull away from each other. So at the moment the battle for the lead is a stalemate. We've only got about 1:40 left on the clock. So we will get one more lap after this. And you can see the visible gap there between myself and Superboy. That the damage is severely hurting my pace at the moment. So through no pressure from behind, I have made a mistake which could potentially cost me a podium here. And Superboy will be very happy to get back to the podium. He is running a bit tight on fuel here. He is running in the red, which means I believe he's got less than 1.3 laps of fuel in the car. But if it's just flipped over to that, he should be fine to make it to the end of the race. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a fuel limited sprint race, so we will pay attention to see who has enough fuel at the end of this. Because if someone has not been paying attention, they will likely run out of fuel if they've been trying to get the ultimate pace out of the car. And Superboy taking the outside line, a very easy move to take back a podium position, which has been a very good recovery drive, you have to say. And already just eking the gap out with his more confidence and more pace at the moment. So I'm going to quickly flick through the cars to see who has enough fuel. It seems like everyone has got enough. The 2 cars that were retired at the end of the first lap have come back out to finish the race and at least get classified. Piggum's now running very fine on that fuel. He has got the back straight to go, which means he is going to be burning that fuel quite rapidly down there. But Piggum's not really seen that much during this race, but those are normally the races that indicate a dominant drive, because he has just kept his nose clean so far in this race, and he's been rewarded for the patience that he showed in the first and this race. As he rounds the final corner now with just about enough fuel to make it to the end, it is going to be another victory for Piggums this season, crossing the line with a healthy margin over Razor. Razor showing his delight for the second place that he got, with a very big gap over Superboy and myself. Superboy just about got enough fuel as well. Everyone is running this right down to the wire. So it is P3 for Superboy, P4 for myself, and another P5 for Steve. So that is a very good weekend's job for Steve, collecting as many points as possible. Bar to round out the top 6 finishers. Despite with that damage, it is a very good result for Bar. Doug, after making that stop with a 0 fuel in the car, comes across the line in 7th, still picking up the points for his championship bid. TDC with some late race damage finishes 8th, Mike in 9th. Pappy will come across the line in 10th. Simon rounded the final corner with Petrol many laps down. These two are very close to each other, but Petrol is many laps down. So Simon in 11th, Petrol in P12. And with that, it is the end of the race. So thank you for watching, everyone, and I'll see you for the next one.